Buenos dias, good morning. Today we're going to have a look at some vocabulary for driving. Okay, so today's lesson consists of a few different lists of vocabulary. The next lesson will involve sentences that we'll need to use in the driving test. And this lesson will purely focus on the words first. So this is kind of a memory thing, unfortunately, but it's parts of the car that you do need to know to pass your practical driving exam in Spain. Sometimes you can be asked at the beginning of the exam where something is, and you'll have to point to it in the car, or you could be asked a basic question about a car part. So this is where this is coming from. The test sometimes goes a little bit more beyond purely driving from A to B. So it's important to know these words. So I've divided it up into different lists. The first list is exterior parts of the car, partes exteriores del coche. And we have neumáticos, llantas, ruedas, parachoques, carrocería, tubo de escape, luces de niebla, capó, matrícula, luces, luces traseras, maletero, parabrisas o luna, limpia parabrisas, intermitentes, espejos. So that's just a very, very fast read of the list. So if we have another little look over it, we can see if we go to the first lesson, which is nothing to do with driving, it's purely a pronunciation lesson in Spanish. We can refer back to that if needed. And we can quickly speak about the accents. So as I've mentioned in the pronunciation lesson and in previous lessons before, the accent is where the strength is on the word. So you'll hear neumáticos, and you can hear the A in the middle is the stronger part there. Or in this word, for example, carrocería, you can hear that the end of the word kind of goes up, carrocería. This is just something so you can pick the words out. It might sound a little bit different to how you think it is on paper. So a question could be, ¿dónde está? Where is? ¿Dónde está el maletero? Where is the boot? Or they might say to you, can you open the boot? Or I don't know, can you show me where the indicators are? These sentences will be in the next recording, but we need to make sure that we have the vocabulary first so we know what's going on in the sentence. So we've got things like ruedas, remembering the rolling of the R because it's a beginning R. Ruedas, which would just be from the whole tire, the wheel part. Luces. Luces is a plural word. So in Spanish, light is luz. I'm going to write that down. Light is luz with a Z. And when we turn it into a plural, the Z changes to a C and we have an ES ending. So we have luces. Luces. So when we're talking about lights in the car, we'll be using that word in plural, and we'll be using, for example, rear lights, luces traseras. Then we have words like parabrisas, which literally means it stops the wind. Para is stop. Another word that you might use or might hear when you're driving the car, or sometimes it's also called luna. It can be one or the other. Limpia parabrisas. Limpia is a Spanish word for clean. And then we've got, again, the windshield behind it. So when you come across words like this, it's just a matter of breaking it down. Limpia parabrisas. And together, limpia parabrisas. Intermitentes. Indicators, intermitentes. and mirrors, espejos. Remembering as well at the top, the y sound, llantas. This purely is, unfortunately, a little bit of memory. There's no cheat way around of learning this. Okay, the next part I've put on is the mechanics and interior parts of the car. Obviously not absolutely everything to do with the car is on this list, just purely from feedback from different groups that I'm in regarding the Spanish driving license, from doing my own Spanish driving license here, from doing a bit of research online. These are the main things that you would need to know. If you don't understand one of these words or a sentence, does it mean you're going to fail the exam? Not at all, but just, the more we know, the smoother the exam will go. So we've got mechanics and interior parts of the car, mecánica y partes interiores del coche. So this doesn't always happen, but it could happen. If they say to you, show me where the battery is, they would use the word batería, batería del coche. Then we've got the dashboard, salpicadero, salpicadero. Embrague, clutch, embrague. This is one that you will hear 1,000 times in the driving lessons you have before the exam. Freno, another one that you're going to hear a lot in the driving lessons. My recommendation would be, even if you're with a driving school that do speak English, if you want to start your first few lessons in English, great, but definitely have some lessons purely in Spanish so that you're ready for the day of the exam. Embrague, freno. Acelerador. Embrague, freno, acelerador. Pantalla. Pantalla, most of the cars now in the driving schools, modern cars with the incorporated screen, sat-nav thing, this would be in Spanish, pantalla. Volante, a very important one as well, the steering wheel, volante. Gears would be marchas. And then you've got your caja de cambios, where you would be changing from first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, which we have in one of the previous recordings. But even still, let's just take a moment to look at that. So in your caja de cambios, you would have first, primera, segunda, and this is in feminine ending in A because it's las marchas, the gears. Tercera, this technically should be an A. It's not letting me do that, but it would be primera, segunda, tercera, cuarta, quinta, and then a lot of cars now, most of the driving school cars now would have sexta, and then you've got reverse, which would be in Spanish, marcha atrás. La caja de cambios tiene primera marcha, segunda marcha, tercera marcha, cuarta marcha, quinta y sexta marcha. Y la marcha atrás. If you want to take a note of that or go back to where we have it on the previous worksheet, that's fine. Okay, so we have las marchas, the gears, los asientos, seats, and we're going to move on to the next page. Okay, let's move on to the next page. There's a few more on the list. So I've got cinturón, very important one, seatbelt. Cinturones is the plural word for seatbelts, just in case you need to use it in plural. Depósito, depósito lleno. If you're asked to check, have you got a full tank before you pull away, or is there any petrol in the tank? Depósito. The horn, claxon. Aceite, oil, or aceite del motor, if you want to use the full name. And then we've got the lights. So like I said before, light in singular is luz, and in plural it's luces. And then we've got the side lights in Spanish are called luces de posición, low beam, luces de cruce, and then main beam would be las luces largas. Once again, this could just be a question that's asked from experience at the end of the exam. If the exam's gone well, they might just pop an extra question in just to make sure you're really on the ball before they give you your pass. Or it could be asked at the beginning. It's normally asked at the end, just so that you doesn't make you nervous, the question. But you could be asked, okay, that went well. Can you just show me where the main beam is, or how you would put the main beam on once you've already parked up? So we'll get round to those sentences in the next recording, but our task for today is trying to remember as many as the purple words as we can as possible. Luces de posición, luces de cruce, las luces largas. Positions in the car, posiciones en el coche, who is sitting where. So the driver in Spanish would be called the pilot, so we would say piloto. Passenger would be copiloto. So in your exam, you will be the piloto, and your teacher from the driving school will be the copiloto. So just in case you're not aware of this already, depending on where you are with your process with the driving school, your teacher, your instructor will come with you on the day of the exam, and they will be the passenger in the same car that you've been learning in. And your examiner will be sat in the back. Acompañantes. Acompañantes would be other people that are with you. Sometimes in the exam, you'll take it in turns with another student or another, even two students. So other people could be sat in the car with you. Examinador. Alumno, student, profesor, your teacher or instructor. Compañeros is another word for the other passengers, colleagues, or otros alumnos, other students, just so you know who's who and what's going on. So we have piloto, copiloto, acompañantes, examinador, alumno, profesor, otros alumnos, otros compañeros. Okay, now we have some parking vocabulary. Vocabulario para aparcar. So the verb in Spanish, the action to say park is aparcar. If you wanted to use it in a commanding way, which is how you will be instructed in your exam, aparcar is the equivalent in English maybe to park. And then you would say, I park, you park, or park here. You would put it in different people. So if you wanted to command somebody to park, tell them to park, you would say aparca. So if I wanted to say park here, I would say aparca aquí. Or park now, I would say aparca ahora. Or another really good one could be park where you can. So the exam's coming to an end, they want you to park up. Aparca donde puedas. Without going into the Spanish grammar too much, this is the verb tense, which is to command people. It's not, oh, you know, isn't it aparco for I park or aparcas for you park? Without worrying about that, this is the way you will see it in the exam, because it's telling you what to do and where. So you would always use or always hear aparca. Aparca aquí, aparca ahora, Aparca donde puedas. Park where you can. Literally, word for word. You'll see that the Spanish actions or verbs don't necessarily need to have the word I or you in all the sentences because it's already incorporated into the word itself. This ending here is telling me that it's talking about you. So there's not a translation for the word you. The Spanish translations are always a little bit shorter than what we have in English for that reason. So this would mean park where you can. Aparca donde puedas. Park here, aparca aquí. Park now, aparca ahora. Then we've got the different types of parking. The two types of parking you can be asked in a Spanish driving exam are the following. Aparcar en línea, so you would be instructed, aparca en línea, which would be parallel parking, or perpendicular parking would be aparca en batería. Sometimes you won't be told how to park. If they say aparca aquí, depending on where you are, you'll know obviously which one you need to do. Or if they say park where you can, depending on the area you're in, you might have the choice to decide which space you're going to go for. If you need to reverse park in, they could say aparca, marcha atrás. Or maybe they might use the word using. So they might say park using, using the reverse in Spanish. Maybe that's not the exact translation in English, but in Spanish, it would be very, very normal to say aparca. You could literally just say in Spanish, aparca marcha atrás. Or you could say aparca utilizando, using the reverse. It would be a literal translation. Aparca utilizando la marcha atrás. Reverse park, please. In Spanish, it's always going to sound a little bit more demanding. There's no por favor, gracias. It's very straight to the point. Aparca utilizando la marcha atrás. O aparca marcha atrás. Okay, then you could be asked to park on a hill. Aparca en cuesta. Or if you're somewhere where there's two options, they might say aparca en llano, to park somewhere flat. And really going back to the marchas, the gears, this is a little trick where they'll want to see what gear you leave the car in. So if you're parking on a hill and you don't want the car to roll back, they would expect you to aparcar, and they would expect you to use la primera marcha so the car doesn't roll back. They would expect you to put el embrague, the clutch, poner el embrague, put la primera marcha, and that should give you that little extra point on the hill, or depending, where you are. Okay, so we have aparcar, the full verb or the command aparca, aparcar en línea, aparcar en batería, aparcar marcha atrás, en llano, en cuesta, aparcar en doble fila, double parking. Now, obviously this is illegal, you can't double park, but sometimes if you're having an exam in a really busy city and there's literally nowhere to park and you're first and there's another student that's going after you, you can be asked to double park, and literally hop out the car and let the other student hop in the driving seat. Aparcar en doble fila. So if you're told aparca en doble fila, you know that it's an exception, just so they can get the exams done that morning and let the other student in to take over with their exam. Aparca en doble fila. Okay, so this like I've said previously, is purely just memorizing. I think with the next recording where we have some sentences with it, it will make it a little bit easier to memorize. And if you've already started your driving lessons, you'll be hearing a lot of these words in those lessons, which is obviously very helpful to put them in practice. But this is a recording that you'll need to listen to definitely more than once. Okay, I'm just going to go over the list one more time before I end this. Just in case it's easier to have it twice rather than having to keep rewinding the video back. So I'm just going to go through the Spanish words now. Partes exteriores del coche. Neumáticos, llantas, ruedas, parachoques, carrocería, tubo de escape, luces de niebla, capó, matrícula, luces, luces traseras, maletero, parabrisas o luna, limpia parabrisas, intermitentes, espejos, mecánica y partes interiores del coche, batería del coche, salpicadero, embrague, freno, acelerador, pantalla, volante, caja de cambios con las marchas, asientos, cinturón o cinturones, depósito, depósito lleno, claxon, aceite, aceite del motor, las luces, luces, luces de posición, luces de cruce, las luces largas, or the one that we had at the top, luces de niebla. And now, y ahora, posiciones del coche. Who's where in the exam? Piloto, copiloto, acompañantes, alumno, profesor, otros alumnos, compañeros. Y lo último, the last part, vocabulario para aparcar. Aparcar, park, aparca, the demanding way. Aparcar en línea, aparca en línea. Aparcar en batería, marcha atrás, en llano, en cuesta. Y aparcar en doble fila. Muchas gracias y nos vemos en la próxima clase con las frases. So I will see you in the next lesson to get some of these words, some of this vocabulary into some of our sentences. Muchas gracias. Hasta ahora.